I also want them to somehow have the struggle of, learning themselves and, learn how to do hard things. So I'll surprise them every once in a while and say, okay, guys, grab a bottle of water. We're going to go walk 10 miles.
Yeah.
They love that.
A lot of people I don't want my kids I want my kids to have a better life than I did. And that's an understandable notion, but there's a detriment to that,
Agreed.
From the business capital of the world, the Big Apple, New York, Middle Tennessee, it says here. Sounds riveting.
Yeah.
This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals.
That's right.
Mostly.
Yes, as always, thank you, Mr. Matt Wilson. And I was going to try and get him on today to kind of respond to his most recent episode of the Mostly Marketing Podcast. He's the one that's his voice that you just heard. And he actually had a podcast recently where it was called Just Answer the Phone. And he talks a lot about people in the automotive industry and other industries. And as I was listening to it, it's only about a 10-minute podcast episode. He was like, just why do people not return phone calls and answer their phone? He says, I wanted to put an addition on my house. And I couldn't get someone to call me back. And he's living up in Connecticut, where we used to come from. That and apparently when he was shopping for a new Jeep Grand Cherokee or Wagoneer, he's like, I want to spend stupid gobs of money on a car and I can't get anyone to call me back. Do you find that to be the case, Christopher McClintock?
That is 100% why I jumped in the real estate game.
Yeah?
A few years back.
No one was returning your calls.
Oh, you couldn't get somebody returning your call, especially in the commercial space.
Right.
And in the commercial space, as much as residential realty is regulated,
right,
the commercial is totally not regulated.
Really?
It's the Wild West out there. At least that's been my experience. And,
so it's more fun.
Yes. If fun is like slimy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun.
That's what. It's so nice that we have our friend Jana, who has some integrity in the space. And that's the reason that I even jumped in the commercial real estate game a few years back myself, was just because if I just return a dang phone call, I'll have more business than I can ever handle.
Totally.
If I have an ounce of integrity in the space, again, I have more business than I can handle.
I'm going to text him right now. This is a podcast in real time that I have ideas, and let's see if we can get him on the phone. I'm going to see if he can call me. Call me. We're on. You'd like Matt.
Okay.
Because you have a very interesting personality, and for those of you listening, I know I'm kind of nonchalantly, casually getting into the episode, not really setting it up with my formatics, as we say. Again, this is a video and audio podcast. We talk to Middle Tennessee business owners and entrepreneurs and all that fun stuff. All the things can be found at MMTBP.com if you haven't discovered them before. Oh, look at that! He's calling us. So
look, you got a call back, Jim.
I got a call back. I'm gonna put you on speaker, Matt. We're actually doing the podcast, and we did talk about you.
I missed it. I didn't hear. What'd you talk about? Is this live?
This is live. We are actually recording right now.
Oh, hi guys.
Hi.
What podcast am I on?
You're on the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast. Thank you very much.
That's
Very
Matt,
interesting
right?
name, since my podcast is called Mostly Marketing and it's been around for 5 years.
No, it hasn't. It was the Mostly Automotive Marketing Podcast. Thank you very much.
Fair enough. I do love this podcast.
Yes, it's a good podcast.
It is. You're a good host.
Thank you.
I like it.
And
is there a guest on your show today?
We do. It's Mr. Christopher McClintock. Say hello.
What's going on, brother?
You hear him?
Barely. Hey, Christopher, how you doing?
I don't know.
Set up over there. Can't even hear the guest.
I know. I don't have it piped through the Roadcaster. I'm really screwing up here.
That's not that hard to do.
Shut up.
This is the mostly part.
This is the mostly part. So we talked about your episode recently where it was just pick up the phone. And I had some questions,
All right, yeah, go ahead. I like that episode. That was fun to do. I got a lot of feedback on it.
Well, first of all, you had a lot of you had people. You just did it spontaneously, right? Because someone didn't return your call. You got fired up, and it was not really a podcast episode. It was more like you know what really grinds my gears. That's what it was, right?
Oh, like Peter Griffin, Family Guy,
right?
Yeah. I was kind of stewing. I was kind of sitting on my couch stewing about it. And then I ran downstairs to my podcast studio. I was like, I got something to say. I got to turn it on and we'll start recording,
Yeah. So
people have to hear what's on my mind right now.
I agree with you with those people who don't return phone calls or don't answer the phone. But at the same time, it's kind of like we're living in an area in a time where the trades especially do not have the workforce with all the demand. So
Sure.
it's kind of like we got what we wished for in a way. We sent everybody to college over the last 30 years and the trades have suffered. So all these guys are making all the money and they don't need to return your call.
So you're saying that the accountant that I referenced in the podcast and the contractor, all the people that I called, don't need my business, so they didn't bother to call me back.
I think CPAs are also very much in demand these days. They didn't need your business, and they're like, I just don't want to deal with Matt Wilson, whatever.
I haven't paid taxes in 10 years though, so you think they'd want to probably make a ton of money off me?
Yeah, I mean, you said this happened to you too, Chris? Nobody calls you back
in real estate.
Yeah,
in commercial real estate.
Yeah.
Early on, I got hoodwinked and learned a couple of valuable lessons just due to ignorance, and I got taken advantage of. So I never had people to have to go through that again. So then when I did want to do some deals, and I kind of had a little bit of a business acumen, then I couldn't get anyone to return my phone calls about buying a building. Again, I wanted to spend a lot of money, but people didn't want to spend it with me, I guess.
Well, sometimes I don't know. I'm kind of like, I see where you're coming from, Matt, but at the same time, I'm like, well, sometimes as people, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot when they don't do that, because eventually things aren't going to be such a rosy economy. And they're going to be like, damn, I really wish I returned Matt's phone call.
I don't understand. Are you agreeing or disagreeing with me?
I'm kind of on the fence.
Well, look at it this way.
Yeah.
I have selected a contractor, right?
Yeah.
I am going to build an addition on my house, an additional 625 square feet.
Oh my God, you're balling.
It's quite a chunk of money. All right. So I called, whatever I said, 4 contractors, including the one in New Milford that everyone's heard of in my town, and then one that somebody recommended to me. And if I'm in town this spring at softball and somebody says, oh, that's right, mentioned you're getting your addition. Did you use so-and-so, the main popular guys in town? What am I going to say? No, they didn't even bother to call me back. Doesn't seem too reliable.
Right.
So now I've spread the word to someone else who may be eventually in market for their services that I had a negative experience. I had a negative experience not even talking to anybody. And the people that I did select called me back and have been great. I've been to their offices. We've been on the phone. They've been to my house. We've been through everything, but none of these other people called me back, specifically the most popular one in my hometown. And people are going to ask me about it, and I'm going to say, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're any good. They don't follow up well.
You just kind of broke into a Bob Mordente impression. A lot of inside jokes here.
Money.
Yeah.
So money.
To give you context, Christopher, Matt and I worked in radio 25 years ago.
Long time.
Yeah, long time ago.
1997
we started, and Bob Mordente was our boss, our general manager. And how did he sound?
Money. Hey guys, money.
Yeah, he was always all about money. So, well, thank you for joining us. I'm going to get on with our podcast, and thank you for the phone call. This is kind of an interesting little tangent we took.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, and Christopher, nice to meet you.
You too, brother. Have a good day.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
We'll talk. So there you go.
There you go. Another 10-minute podcast out of it.
So basically, I just I kind of wanted to switch things up and make this a little bit more casual going into it, So Christopher McClintock, you are the owner and operator of Comfort Keepers.
Yes, sir.
And it's kind of timely that we're having this conversation. Going on before this, I talked about my mother. My mother passed recently, and I imagine you must get a lot of the similar scenarios that I explained to you before we started talking.
Very much so.
Do you?
Yeah, we're coming into people's homes and lives at an interesting season.
Yeah.
In their life.
So is it kind of like a hospice in a way?
We're not hospice. We help hospice. We get a lot of referrals from hospice. Shout out to Alive Hospice here in Nashville.
They're great.
Who give us a lot of referrals. Hospice They do a wonderful job, and they'll come in and they can administer medications. They can they can do bathing and help take care of somebody, but they might only be able to be there 15 to 30 minutes or so, where a family might need 4 to 8 hours of care each day. So when a family, the family member maybe is a fall risk, maybe they are bedbound, or they need a lot more attention, then they'll call Comfort Keepers, and we can send one of our qualified caregivers in to, help the family relieve the burden of, keeping them clean, making sure that they get everything they need, and kind of allows, especially towards end of life, the family to be the daughter again, to be the son again, rather than be the caretaker of their parent.
Because hospice, like if you ever have someone who's passed, and everybody comes across this, you have no idea. Sometimes you buy flowers and things like that. Honestly, one of the best things you could do, especially if the person, the deceased, was involved with hospice towards the end, or hospice was involved with them, is to make a contribution, a donation, because they're typically nonprofit. Right?
There's a lot of them nonprofit. They're for-profit. There's, but you just have to do your research. But even the for-profit ones and the nonprofit ones I've seen, the people that are there, they're in this industry for a reason. It's because they care. It
takes a special person.
Oh, man, does it.
You're helping people die. And not like in the Kevorkian way. It's keeping him comfort until the time comes.
It is. And again, like I said, the most important thing that our caregivers do and the hospice people do is they take that burden of care off of the family, so then they can actually, be the family member again.
Right. Well, as I said, getting back to introducing you, yes, that is I think a glowing testimonial. You're a creatively funny guy, and a little bit of stand-up comedy in you, I think.
You think so?
Yeah.
There's always been in the back of my mind, there's a place that does an open mic, and there's me.
Talking about Bunganut?
No, it's a happenstance.
You know who did the open mic at Bunganut is Mercurio. Did he tell you about that?
No.
Yeah. His wife put
that guy is awesome.
Yeah.
That guy is awesome. My one of my best friends is he's also my physician. He's a concierge doctor here in town. We're always kind of daring each other to and he would be good too. Oh, does he have stories?
I think Mercurio, for those of you who don't know, Christopher and I are in the same BNI.
We are.
You've heard me talk about BNI before. Mutual friend of ours is also in BNI, Mike Mercurio. Never had him on the podcast. We need to get him on, but he's also done this podcast. He's the host of the Ales and Tales podcast that we do here as well from it'syourshow.co. And I'm also a part of that podcast where we talk and sample all sorts of beers. But apparently his wife and he were at this open mic and somebody said, well, hey, who wants to come up? And his wife pointed to Mike and said, he wants to come. And he's like, what are you doing?
Did you have any kind of minute prepared or anything?
Nothing. I guess he had something because he did 5 minutes and he won. I guess he won the night.
Of course he did.
Yeah,
of course
he won the prize.
That makes perfect sense, though.
He's a sharp dude.
He is.
Yeah.
He is. I mean, getting to know him, he and I both have a affinity for bourbon as well. So we've been known to drink a bourbon, and
I've been starting a new habit that involves brown water. Actually indulging some of this while we're on the podcast, that some of the more fun podcasts that I produce that are kind of just passion projects.
If you ever need guests, I know a guy who looks just like me who would love to be a part of that. But
with your comedic edge, we're going to have you on a lot of podcasts.
But yeah, Mike's a rock climber too. I don't know if you know that. He plays drums like you.
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah. He and I talk about a lot about that.
And then for his profession, he has presented to me. I've been around a lot of financial advisors and some really great people, but Mike presented to me the most well-rounded financial picture I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
And so just a good dude, has an interesting background, just a fun hang.
We use him as well for our financial interests.
That's great.
So, yeah. I've done things, that he's advised, and I've done things that he's advised against, and he's probably going to laugh and chuckle when he hears that and roll his eyes. But, here we are.
That's funny.
So tell me, how'd you begin with all this? I mean, what started your entrepreneurial journey getting, did you go to college?
I did.
Where are you from originally?
Northern Ohio.
Gotcha.
Little one stoplight township.
Not Cleveland.
In Ohio. It's about an hour south of Cleveland, about an hour north of Columbus. No one's ever heard of it, called Plymouth, Ohio. 300 in my high school. My high school's not even there anymore. They're building a fire station on top of it. Right.
Done with the high school.
Yeah. And, but yeah, and I guess I could look back. I was mowing lawns as a kid and, making a killing, making $20 a lawn, back in the day. But I don't think I really started my entrepreneurial journey until I moved here in 2000 to Tennessee. And my background is in exercise physiology. So I was personal training here in Middle Tennessee, and I helped the gentleman start a gym. I was 22. I didn't have 2 cents to rub together, but I said, I love the idea. I'm with you till the end. He came in about 18 months later and said, I'm shutting it down.
Right.
And at the time I was in a BNI. I watched Steve Cassidy's podcast, and he and I were in the same one back in the early 2000s. I was president. He was president.
Oh, really?
We did everything. We were the president, vice president, door greeter. We did all the things.
Yeah.
And I was actually training a business coach and a CPA that were in my BNI at the time. And they said, Christopher, you could totally do this on your own. Let us show you how. Yeah. Just had a 1 hour meeting that showed me how to pay my taxes, showed me good business practices. I still follow those today. And my gym, 21 years now, it's been there.
You still were owning it?
I still own the gym.
Whereabouts is it?
It's right in the Maryland Farms Business Park.
Okay.
It's just a personal training gym. I've got a great general manager there. I've got 7 trainers and a massage therapist that are there. And it's just for personal training and massage. So it's not a gym that you can join and come anytime. It's just for one-on-one appointments. We want to keep people pain-free, get them pain-free. We're not looking to enter bodybuilding competitions or anything. We just want people to enjoy their life.
Yeah, just so you be more flexible, add some muscle, stuff that I need to be doing, but I don't.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're on a medication, like blood pressure medication or something, we can help you, get you off of that just through baby steps of, exercise. That's what I loved about exercise from the beginning, was that you can show some people that to meet any goal, you need a plan and you need accountability. Yeah. So we can provide you the plan. And then I've had clients that have been with us over 20 years, after a time or two how to do bicep curls. Why would you stick with us 20 years?
Right.
Great accountability. And then the line kind of begins to blur between friendship and business. And we just have it's been really wonderful people that have sustained us all these years.
Yeah. And it's like, at my point in life, it's just, I want to do it, but getting that dip switch to flip back where it needs to go. Cause that happened to me when I was 23, 24, I got really good in shape, fell in love with fitness, but it took so much time. And at the time I was into radio, I was getting into full time. I didn't need to be to the station till 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I was there till 10 at night. So I worked out in the morning, like 9:30, 10 o'clock. I had the gym to myself. I was able to meal prep in that time as well. And right now, it's just time, man. The energy.
You know what? It never stops. Even myself, who've been doing it for, most of my life, it's more now the challenge is the time commitment.
Yeah.
I have to make little promises to myself that I'm going to keep this time carved out.
Yeah.
It's 5 a.m. when I have to do it. And that means that sometimes I got to commit to a nap in the afternoon, to do that. So I feel very blessed that it's gone that well. And again, it's just been wonderful people. We made it through 2008. We made it through COVID. Yeah. And it's just good people who believed in what we were doing there.
And then you got
with us.
Comfort Keepers. What did you do in between Comfort Keepers? Was there anything else?
Oh, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I've done a bunch of things, Jim.
That's okay.
I left put a general manager in place and left and went to a hedge fund for 2 years.
Wow.
And traded calls and puts and did that. And then 18, there was a V bottom in the market. And in February, and
what's a V bottom?
Crash is too strong a word.
Okay.
But the market took a big dip.
In 2018?
In 2018.
Really?
Yes, in February of 2018. If you go back in time, you can see in the S&P 500, there was a big V bottom that came right back up, but people got scared when the money went way down.
Right.
And some key investors pulled. Well, that was the end of the hedge fund.
Okay.
Then. And so that ended up going under. So I walked back across the parking lot to where my gym was and started personal training again. And Well, I loved it on a 1 to 10 scale. The happiness was a 10.
Right.
In all those years and 20 years, there wasn't a day I didn't love going in. I'd be there at 5 a.m, be there till 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And wasn't quite creating the legacy that I wanted financially, though. Though I was happy, never had to wonder if me and my kids were going to eat.
Right.
Lived a good life, but it wasn't quite what I wanted to do. And then after 20 years, you kind of get curious, what else is out there. So that's when I jumped in the real estate market. And it was through that, a lot of times through commercial real estate, you'll see businesses for sale as well. And when you look at enough of them all day, you can kind of point out the anomalies.
Yeah.
And I saw this in-home non-medical healthcare company come up for sale and looked extremely interesting to me. So I went and I met the owner, loved him. He was just getting to a point where, there's this phrase, they call it the silver tsunami right now of
That's
people.
The boomers.
It is.
Yep.
They're all I think I might be in there too with my hair color.
Dude, you're younger than me. I don't know. We're not going there.
But he and his wife were kind of ready to retire and go live their best years. And he was almost kind of an absentee owner.
Yeah.
And so he just, so he had a number of suitors for this business. And thankfully he chose me. And so I came in, he had a strong team in place, all who are still there. I feel very blessed with a strong team of Comfort Keepers. So I just let them keep doing their thing.
So it's kind of a turn,
stay out of their way.
You're just going to market it and it's a turnkey kind of thing, but you just got to keep pushing the needle with marketing and awareness.
That's right. That's right. And because they were so good, that's allowed me to look up and expand,
right.
See other opportunities. So we just had the Middle Tennessee area when I first took over in January of 23. And we have since purchased the East Tennessee territories for Knoxville, and Chattanooga was green space. So we went down there and opened an office, and we're building clients down there now too. So yeah, it's been great. But if this team wasn't so strong in Middle Tennessee, I never would have been able to look up and see, what the other opportunities were. But our house was right there, so we could.
Going into a scenario like that, it's all about keeping the culture happy and healthy.
100%.
Yeah. Because they're the ones that are, if all of a sudden they bail, it's like, okay, now what do I do?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So I try to, make sure it's a good culture. It's a good place to work. There's a lot of, family and work balance there. But if there's a couple of them, I'd chain them to the desk if they tried to leave.
Well, I mean, a lot of that is, because you get a lot of people, you got managers that will come into a situation. I learned this from the first program director in radio. He said, if you ever get into, being a manager of anything and you're replacing somebody else and they're leaving on good terms, they weren't let go, they're moving up, and you're replacing them. Your first obligation is to find out why they did what they did and what worked. And don't put your ego in your pocket and don't make changes for the sake of making change to accommodate your ego. Because that's what a lot of them do. I've worked for him in radio, my first job, and then he bounced. He went up to Hartford, and the guy who came in behind him was a drastically different manager. And I ended up heading out the door anyway. I was going to Vegas. The guy who hired me in Vegas was great. Still talk to him today. Still good friends. He ended up bouncing to Dallas, big career move, a major market. And the guy who replaced him instantly was out the door. Like Gavin, who hired me in Vegas, was all about making it like family. We hung out off hours, went to, go hang out in the bars and stuff like that, and came over each other's houses. And it was really kind of a cool feeling. And then the guy who took over for him, he was all about, it's your job to make me look good.
Oh,
that was the attitude. And I was like, okay, yeah. It's time for us to figure out the next move.
Yeah.
And we ended up moving here in 2005, and I moved to a very family-oriented radio station here in town, Mix 92.9 and Jack FM. And no major management changes there. They're still great people. So.
Does your garage door sound like this? If it does, it's screaming for help. Call Incredible Doors, 931-348-DOOR. We're making garage doors in Murray and Williamson counties work better, sound better, and, well, spring better. We just make them incredible again. Incredible Doors in Spring Hill. For when your door's springs break, you need remote reconnections, opener installation, or just about anything to do with your garage door. Go to IncredibleDoors.com or call 931-348-DOOR. Follow us on Facebook for specials on maintenance visits, keypads, and other items. 931-348-DOOR.
I'd heard you recently say, kind of give a wonderful speech. And two, I want to give you your flowers, Jim. When you do your presentations, your 8-minute presentations in BNI, there's always like a wonderful message that you bring. It's not just about the business. You're always bringing some kind of higher level,
cool,
looking for meaning, and things like that. Like, and I would think you would be a wonderful boss, if you're looking for like good culture and meeting and all that. Anyway, I've always loved your presentations. Look forward to when you're doing them. So
well, we have another BNIer in the room here who's off camera. How am I doing so far, Ben?
One thumb up.
Yeah, only one thumb. I have to earn the second thumb. Double thumbs up. But I've always, I guess, because of my experiences in radio and even the car business, especially, I got out of radio, went into the car business, worked for another guy who I had a relationship via radio because of all the different advertising we did. I did videos for him and came up with their marketing campaigns and things of that nature. He ended up convincing me to go into the car business, and within 3 months, he bounced out of the whole industry.
Yeah.
And the same situation, the guy replaced him. It went from Steve Brink being very us-centric. He was all about, I have a phrase called be them centric. It applies to life. It applies to relationships, social media strategies, marketing. Make it about them. It's less about you.
Probably returning a phone call.
Right.
Things like that.
Right. 5149. And Steve was all about that. The guy who replaced him, it was all about him, man.
Yeah.
It was the him show. And at that point, my wife even said, yeah, it's time for you to go find another, you need to get out of there.
Yeah.
And I ended up going into Mercedes and so on and so forth. I had a lot of experience of how to do things and how not to do them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for anybody in management, they gotta have that. I think honestly, managers need to have kids.
Yeah.
Right.
I can see that. Yeah.
It teaches
keeps you humble.
It does. Keeps you humble, and it shows you how to talk to people.
It does.
Sometimes you got to talk to them like children. Not that I'm going to do that to you, Ben. But,
I've never had to do that to my employees ever.
But not like children, but talking with a strategy on how to get them to see
and a reason,
right?
Of why we're doing the things that we're doing them. And even back to the phone call thing. I mean, I know in our industry, speed to response is number one.
Yeah.
If you need help for mom, you need it now.
Yeah.
And you call Comfort Keepers and they don't pick up, guess what? You're right on to the next one.
Yeah.
We got about 15 to 30 seconds, if we don't talk to them, to get back in touch with them.
Right.
Or they're on to the next one. I mean, if 5 minutes go by, we've lost them.
Non-medical patient care. What is
right.
that?
Yeah, great question. We better defined by things we can't do.
Mm-hmm.
We can't give medications, anything that goes inside the body. We can't do a needle.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do catheters. We can't do, if there's ongoing wound care,
mm-hmm.
We can't do that. But some people reach that point where maybe their hands don't work quite the way that they used to, and they can't like button their clothes or do their hair or bathe properly. Maybe they're a fall risk. Maybe they live alone. The family lives out of town,
right?
And they just need someone there to make sure that they're okay and they're, and their hygiene is good and that they're safe.
So I'd imagine it's like a supplemental business to all the other things that are going on. Medicare, Medicaid kind of component to it.
There is very few take that right now. I really wish they paid a lot more than they reimburse. One thing I'm very proud of is that we pay the most in town to our caregivers.
Right.
And that kind of ensures we have the seasoned veterans that are with us and the caregivers that this is their craft. This is what they want to do. They weren't working at Panera Bread last week and we're going to try caregiving this week.
Right.
These are people, we get 108 to 112 applications a week wanting to work for us.
Really?
And we'll pick 2 to 3. of those to work. So we feel very confident about who we're sending into someone's home to take care of them.
Of that 108 to 112, you said? 108? Of that, what percentage is like a good pool of people?
Those 2 to 3.
Really?
There's probably a lot of other ones that are good, but we're very thankful, knock on wood, that we don't really have a caregiver shortage right now. And that's something a lot of people struggle with. I think that a lot of businesses having trouble, hiring people. Panera Bread probably can't hire enough people right now. I think since gig economy came around, there's not a lot of people going back to traditional, workforce. And so that's why you see help wanted signs everywhere. So thankfully, with what we're doing, we feel very confident about who we're sending into the home with those caregivers so they can take care of the family members.
I would imagine that a lot of it is psychological for the patient, for your clients, just having someone to talk to, maybe on a regular basis.
Yeah. That's, we put together a very detailed plan of care about not only the things they need on the, activities of daily living side, but also, do they want someone to chat with, or they want someone just to
do the job?
Be quiet. Yeah. I want someone, yapping in my ear all day. We'll ask, what their preference is, and we always try to meet that. So thankfully we have a great pool of caregivers that we can kind of meet those needs.
There's, at the beginning I addressed, my mother passed recently, those types of scenarios. And I appreciate a lot of people reaching out and expressing condolences. And it sounds awful to put it this way, but it was a very strained relationship for a long time. I say I put myself in the mindset of getting the call, which we did, this past Sunday. And over the years, just to kind of check myself if I was being purposely callous, or was there really just a detachment of emotions and it was purely a reverence of that biological connection? Because it was more about that for her than for my brother and I. I am your mother, you only get one. A lot of those things were said. And I would, over the years, like I said, put myself in the mindset of, okay, I get the call. What is my emotional reaction? And almost every time it was nothing. Like I just felt nothing. Not that I didn't, of course I loved the woman, but I didn't just, and then again, when it happened, I was like, okay, now it's the real deal. Yeah. Same thing, I make me feel better by telling me that happens more often than not.
I just think, I've always said you can't choose your relatives, but you can choose your family. Right. And a lot of times family members are relatives. Yeah. But that was a relationship. You didn't choose that one. That one was given to you when you came. And then what you all decided to do with that, I'm sure in the end was the right thing.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it was dealing with, it was also a relationship at a distance. They were in Florida. We were up here in Tennessee. My brother is based out of Michigan. So he was able to get down there a lot more often than I was. He's got a more flexible job. He's an attorney. And he's able to work remotely quite a bit. So he went down there a lot more often than I did. But, she was in a PT rehab place where it must have been just god awful, maybe you need to open up a place down there.
There's
on the beach.
Those places I've been in a lot of them, and you kind of get what you pay for. Yeah. But again, I think everyone who is there is well-meaning and wants to help. I've seen a lot of facilities around town. There's some really great facilities here in Nashville. And again, like everyone's having trouble hiring. Right. And I think the state requires one caregiver every 8 rooms.
Really?
So, and
that's spread thin.
It is, but the reality is sometimes there's only one for every 10 to 12 rooms.
Really?
So now you have to pick and choose what the emergency is. So if someone hasn't been changed over here, in a few hours, but this person's fallen, you're going to take care of the fallen person and let that person sit.
Right.
So I've been in and out of enough facilities. Like I said, great people who do a really good job, who really care. And I bet at your mother's place, they really cared.
They're just overwhelmed.
Exactly.
But and the thing is, a lot of people, you try to empathize and put yourself in their bottle and say, I understand. I get it. This is something you deal with every single day. You sometimes forget about the humanity element of it. And yes, we understand our mother wasn't exactly easy to deal with, but I actually did have a nursing home background. That was my first job.
Oh, interesting.
We worked in the kitchen.
Okay.
Dietary aid. And we certainly had the people that their dispositions were a lot more sunnier than some of the other people. They existed to get up and eat every day. That was their life. It was sad, but at the same time, some of them were like, well, hey, this is what happens. It's a lot better than what my parents had back in whenever. And there was one dining room where they were functional and the next dining room where they were just, there was waiting. There was no response, I don't know what you would call that. But some of them were just grumpy as crap, man.
I can't guarantee how I'm gonna be when I'm that age and in that situation.
Well, you take care of yourself, so you're.
Well, I hope, but Jim, let's get out of here alive.
Right.
So, but it sounds like you kind of made peace with your relationship with your mom long ago, long before this point.
Yeah, and it was one of those things that I kind of broke the silence. There was a number of years we didn't talk, and I at least can say that I'm the one who broke the silence and repaired whatever was left of the relationship. She was a good person. I harbor no ill will. I honestly, truly hope she finds peace. And I think a lot of people feel that way about her. But getting back to you mentioned financial legacy. Can we talk about that a bit?
Sure.
Is that
absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
And you push back if you don't want to be too transparent. What does that mean to you? That's an interesting concept. Explain it.
I look back through the generations and like my great grandfather, sometimes just, they weren't sure if he was going to come home
right
or not. And then my grandfather, who grew up in that situation, he was, he showed love by providing 40 years as a roofer. That's hard work.
Yeah.
And never missed a day. Didn't matter. And this is in Northern Ohio.
Yeah.
Didn't matter what the weather was. He wasn't going to miss a day of work. And he provided for his family. My mom and dad were teachers, and they, wanted us to get education and move on. And they even got me out of college with no debt, if you can believe that. So very thankful for that. And so I want to pay that forward by being able with my kids, leave them a bit of a legacy, some money. So then they can be able to make the decisions that they want to make.
Yeah.
Now with that, I also want them to somehow have the struggle of, learning themselves and, learn how to do hard things. So I'll surprise them every once in a while and say, okay, guys, grab a bottle of water. We're going to go walk 10 miles.
Yeah.
They love that.
It's operational tension in a way.
Yeah.
That's what we call it here in the business.
Operational. I don't know that word. Is it like learning to get uncomfortable? That's what is that the same thing?
Yeah. Cause a lot of people I don't want my kids I want my kids to have a better life than I did. And that's an understandable notion, but there's a detriment to that,
Agreed. You don't want things handed to them too easily. Yeah. So that's where I try to, what is that balance, and like any parent, I'm shooting from the hip.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
It really is.
What I feel is, the best thing.
I've always said that if you feel like you're doing it horribly, you're probably doing a good job. Right?
I hope so. Yeah.
I feel like I'm
so far, I feel like they still like me. So.
Yeah. How old are they?
My daughter's 15 and my son's 20.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you have 18-year-old.
18, 16, actually going for his driver's license today.
Nice.
And a 13-year-old.
Okay. Very good.
My 16-year-old is, and this is the thing that I talk about on podcasts, is that transparent legacy aspect. Someday, if they ever listen to the podcast, they'll hear themselves being brought up several times. My 16-year-old, he's a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
He's just a teenager and has a lot of self-absorption, which is typical for that age. But, a maturity that's definitely on the rise.
Sure.
My daughter's in college. She's 18, living her best life, independence, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And my 13-year-old is gregarious, and she's learning dance moves and drawing, very creative and aloof. So,
yeah, I love it. My first BNI back in like 2001, this is before podcasts were a thing, or they
way before.
And this gentleman had a business called Rememberies. I remember that name always stuck with me. I wish I could remember his name, but that was his business. But Rememberies,
enough.
where they would pretty much have this set up, but they would take it to people's homes and, try to record their grandparents or parents' storytelling, all the stories they heard growing up as a kid and all that. A lot of like what you might get on a podcast nowadays.
Right.
And great business idea. And I bet by the time he bought all this stuff, and I think he had priced himself out of the market. I think even back then it was $4,500 to come, do that. And then, and I don't even know whether you got it on a CD at that point. I don't know. The idea was there, the right idea, and to create, not only financial legacy, but legacy of, memories and all that too.
So it was one of those things they would interview the elders and say, okay, what wouldn't you have done? What do you regret?
Right.
What was some of the tougher parts of life? Because I think, thank you for saying that about my BNI, but that was one of those things that literally in one of my presentations, it came to me. I talked about the 9 virtues of podcasting and I added a 10th, I think, right then and there. I said, you know what? Nothing just popped into my mind. Legacy.
100%.
Your kid, for the first time in human history, we, via podcasts, because of the ongoing documentation of these conversations, of whatever comes up, the key of it is ongoing. Documenting it like we used to, because people would come back, challenge that concept by saying, well, we've done that with VHS back in the 80s when everyone had a camcorder. Well, no. On a camcorder, you're showing the highlights and a lot of boring things. We used to put a camera on us. We were one of the first early adopters of like home video.
My dad too. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Did he carry the VCR with him
on the strap in the side?
Right.
Yeah.
And he looked like he was working for a television station, right?
Absolutely.
And people were just natural, like, oh my gosh, is this going on TV? Right?
Yeah.
That happened to us.
Yeah.
And
you had to rest on your shoulder while you were like,
yep. Pretty much.
Yeah.
So because of that, we did things like our Christmas Eves consisted of all of us sitting on the couch, listening to Christmas music, us young kids being excited for the next day. That was like the highlight of the year for me. We loved Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And for, I think about 3 or 4 years in a row, we'd stick the camera on a tripod and run tape for 4 hours of just us listening to music. It's like, who's going to watch this? Yeah. Nobody.
I was going to ask if you watched it.
I did. We would go back as a kid and watch it because it was Christmassy and it got you in the mood. And you'd see funny things that we would do. And, you'd forget the camera was there. So we'd catch some authentic moments. But to have those conversations over time, I wish, I brought this up in several episodes, I could talk to my dad when he was my age and ask him, because he went through a very tough time around this age in his life. What was on your mind? You had a rocket and rolling business throughout the 80s, and you had to contract it just down to you in the 90s because we had a recession. What were you thinking? Talk to me, because we're kind of going through it right now as well. But I've got business partners. I've taken a lot of a big tenet that I think he developed later in life, and he told me about it when I was working for him. Put your pride in your pocket where you put your money. And I do that, but take the pride out of it, man. Just make it work and figure it out with partners, without partners, that kind of thing. I wish I could talk to him, but like I said, for the first time in human history, here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. This is great. That's kind of akin to a question I ask I love hanging out with business owners and just picking their brains. I've been accused of talking up a fence post. I've probably talked too much to them, asked too many questions. But what opportunities do you see now that you're like me, I'm 48. I'm not going to go for that now. But if I were 23,
right?
What are the opportunities you see now that we should go for? Yeah, I'm asking you, Jim.
Well, I see. I've been really into crypto lately.
Okay.
Yeah, past couple of years learning about it, involving myself in it. And, to kind of push back on you, I don't think it is too late. You still got plenty of time left. If you have ideas that I would have pursued at 22, 23, pursue them.
Agree. Yeah.
What do you have?
I agree.
What are we missing out on?
Man, there's one banger business that I saw. I look at businesses all the time. It's just it's fun for me. I hope it's okay. I kind of put them on blast. I watched this doc. You ever see Jane Pauley's Sunday morning show?
Yeah.
All those positive shows. Mm-hmm. There was this guy, he got out of jail. He started this tie-dye company up in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And like with anything now, what do you do with some fun hobby? Well, you add booze to it, right? Mm-hmm. So he had Tipsy tie-dye up there. And so went up to New Jersey, checked it out, made some tie-dye, met him and his sister who own it. I said, oh, you ever think about franchising this? And they said, well, we just completed, our franchisee agreement, and which is, that's like birthing a baby.
Yeah.
So they just undergone this whole thing in hopes to take this thing throughout, the United States. After looking at it, if I was 22, 23, it's going to be nights and weekends, but imagine having a Tipsy tie-dye in downtown Nashville with all the bridal parties and all that. They got something they can make all their outfits and, tie-dye their stuff. Oh yeah. And then they're all coming to Nashville to get drunk anyway, so might as well just lean into that and, give them their outfits and have the booze. And I just think that thing would be a banger here in Middle Tennessee.
Yeah.
So it's nights and weekends, which I've committed to my kids on that, which is kind of the reason I always wanted to be my own boss. I never wanted to miss my kids' events.
Are we ever really our own boss though?
I know. Got a lot of bosses.
Everybody, talks about that. I'm like, oh no, you get clients.
It's a different kind of boss. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's a direct bill boss, but you still, if you build a business, a true business that you will operate on its own without you, then, I guess you could be your own boss.
Yeah. I feel like I've kind of done that now. Now I just try to, I have a great general manager at Comfort Keepers. I have a great general manager at Personal Best, but I enjoy the day-to-day of getting up and seeing how I can grow this thing.
Right.
So
good for you, man.
I think if I took a week off, they'd probably do better without me. I don't know.
And that's the other thing is like, I've seen business owners do that where they get the business, they hire somebody like a right-hand man who will come in, get it rocking and rolling. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, the business owner feel, well, I got to get involved and put my imprint on it. And they screw everything up. Have you seen that too? I've seen it in a particular business here locally.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, of course, because you got your own ideas and, it's easy to look back and connect the dots on successful businesses. But I mean, there's that, the messy middle.
Yeah.
That it's, you can look at 2003 and then 2025. Oh, your gym's a great success. Well, there was a lot of ups and downs in the middle of that. So if I'm perceived that way, I don't know what gave you that idea because I certainly don't feel like it. And we're still working on it every day. Yeah.
That's the purpose aspect of it.
But but that's the part I like.
Yeah.
It's trying to get up and, figure it out.
Where do you want to go from here 5-10 years down the road?
Great question. I would love to, I feel like Comfort Keepers is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So as our main KPI are hours per week that we like to follow. So as those ebb and flow and we continue to grow, and just create again. I think I've got a net worth money number in mind that once I get to that, I can kind of.
You want to put it out there here?
Yeah, a 40
mil.
Yeah,
that's a high number.
I think I can get there.
Well, yeah, you think it's too much?
Way. No, I'm on my way.
I always thought like 5 or 6 would be good. You could live pretty comfortably on that, right?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
You could, but if you shoot from the moon,
land on the roof.
You can land among stars, and then, but I don't ever see myself not doing something.
Yeah.
Having a reason to get out of bed each day, and then, and if I'm working for a nonprofit at the time, just be, a purpose.
There you go.
So some reason to get out. Now, right now, this is a great purpose. And then I think once my daughter graduates and and moves on to her own life, then I'll kind of, see what that season looks like.
What does your son do?
Right now he is between jobs and looking. He got married last year.
Oh, nice.
So he and his wife live about 2 hours from here in Tennessee. And so yeah, he's finding his own way right now.
What does he want to do?
He's very talented at like coding and AI. I think there's a lot of the future. It's something that he very talented at. He was in the robotics club in high school, and they did very, very well. And I think he had a passion for that. So, but I think right now he's just trying to figure it out. See what's going to be good for him and his wife.
Was that a STEM school? They have those STEM programs.
He went to Brentwood Academy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they have in those programs, because we never had, I don't know if you had robotics in your high school.
We did not.
I certainly as hell didn't.
Not in my little 300 person high school. Yeah, we didn't even have soccer.
Your high school taught apparently firefighting. So we're setting them.
So yeah, that's what he's doing right now.
What's your daughter want to do?
When she was about 6 years old, you ask your kids, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?"
Yeah.
She pondered for a minute and said, "I want to be in charge."
That's all I know.
And I said, oh, "Okay, well, you really like your teachers. You want to be in charge like a teacher?" She goes, "No, I just want to make sure I'm in charge." And I was like, I love this kid.
She's a type A, I guess.
She is very organized, very self-motivated, does very well in school. I don't have to tell her to go study. She does it on her own.
Right.
And, she just got, she found bowling.
Nice.
And just in Division II became second in the state. They just had the state tournament and as a freshman. So she,
that's cool.
So that's kind of something fun that she does. And then, she's in the school play. She does everything. She's in the orchestra, choir.
Bowling is an interesting sport, isn't it? It's almost like golf.
Very much so. Very much
You're competing against other people most of the time, but primarily you're competing against yourself.
You are.
In a way.
You are. And you can bowl a strike because you've done it.
Right.
Can you string a bunch of them together?
Yeah.
You can hit par.
Mm-hmm.
You can get it. You can get on the green in 2. But can you do it 18 times in a row?
Right.
you know? So yeah, it's very much that just process and technique and all that. So which I love it. I mean, that's the keys to life.
It's always one more thing.
Yeah.
Can you do it? Yeah. I've done it once. Well, okay. That's great. Every now and then a squirrel finds a nut.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing with social media. Like, well, we want to go viral. Well, you want to do it once or you want to do it over and over and over again? Because that's where the money comes in, and you start getting paid on these platforms. That's what it made me think of when you were describing that. I said that's like going viral, And I've had things in the past that have gone viral, viral. Yeah,
what makes it viral? Is there a number? Is there a threshold?
I think it will. You'll see. It's one thing if you see it going around on social media and it's got tremendous amounts of numbers. But I think if it gets repeated in vernacular, in conversation, like remember the dog that the guy overdubbed his voice and the dog was looking at him. He's like, so I got this steak and the dog's going, yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. The Dollar Shave Club commercial, if you remember
Classic.
That. Right.
Classic.
That's viral.
Yeah.
That's virality. I think when you bring it up in person, in conversation with people. Have you seen that video? Yeah.
Is it like a hit song though?
Yeah.
That there might be somewhat of a formula, but there's a lot of luck.
There is.
Too.
Yeah. Back then, there was a time you could rig the game and, grease some palms to get songs on the radio, pay for playback, payola back in the 70s and stuff like that.
Sure.
But that's gone away. It was basically, they kicked it back to being a meritocracy, regulation. But
another Antioch boy, Jelly Roll, was talking about that very thing. It's still kind of there. If you want to have a number one record, there's a lot of politics involved in that. And what numbers are we even looking at anymore that make it a number one or viral?
I tell
anymore.
songwriters, especially, and I have a theory, of course, it's a hypothesis based on the book that you see behind me, the Pendulum book. Study history, especially in 80-year cycles. Right now, I believe we're living, in 2023, we lived through 1943 all over again. So if you want to write songs or appeal to a mass culture market or something like that, mass media market, study what they did back in the 40s and what do they write about? What was resonating in a big way with the culture? That goes for books, movies, all the things, music, not just the style of music and how it sounds. What were they saying? And what I think Jelly Roll hit on is this permission-based messaging to admit that I'm really not good, and that's a lot of like the kind of the overall messaging in his songs, even with I'm Not Okay. That's a very hard-hitting song, and I think it resonated with the people because that's exactly how I feel. I'm not okay, and that's a season of life in the 80-year season, because there's subsequent 20-year divisions in that are systolic and diastolic.
You don't think that'll resonate during any
think,
generation, any time period?
Not in the 80s. I think the 80s were completely different. I think a lot of people felt like they were okay. I'm on top of the friggin' world.
Okay. What made them feel that way?
I think that was a different mentality that kind of, I think there were exceptions to the rule. I think there were definitely people that didn't feel okay.
Sure.
That's the reason why a lot of guru personalities came out. Tony Robbins had his rise in the 80s. He became one of the biggest personalities in motivation back then. There were other people that did the same thing. But it was based on what the 60s was, and I'm getting deep into the whole concept of pendulum, but from 1963 to 1983 was a 20-year run up to what I call a zenith of a me. And that has its own attitude that culminated in 1983. And then from going down from the 83 to 2003 was the downswing. It's a diastolic, a negative pressure, if you will. 83 is when we took a good thing too far. That started in 1963. The 60s as we know it, it was really 1963 to 69.
Was there an event that happened that kind of switched it in 83?
No. It just happens. It's culture, because if you look at generations are typically measured in about 20-year increments. So if you look at, and that book was actually based off previous books called Generations. There was one that was written in the late 80s. It was called Generations. They did studies of 20-year archetypes of personalities, and they all kind of, the majority of the cultural feeling was dominated in those 20-year increments. In those negative, like the tides, if you will. And that the authors of Generations wrote another book called The Fourth Turning, because they divided each of those 20-year increments into first, second, and third, fourth turnings. Fourth turning is what we've been going through, essentially. And it calls out in that book, it was written in the late 90s, 96, 97, I want to say. It calls out all the stuff we've been going through. It's almost like prophetic.
For example?
For example, now you're making me think. To a certain extent, like some of the economic challenges we've had, it called out a worldwide, coronavirus. That kind of thing. Right. Yeah. Right around when it hit, they said, sometime around this time, we're going to have some sort of worldwide challenge with health and disease and things of that nature. Stuff like that. I can't think of specifics at this time more than that. But in the Pendulum book, they looked at those books because these guys are marketing guys who wrote Pendulum. And what was resonating, because they also have a marketing agency, an advertising agency, what was resonating like literally the previous year with their clients and their messaging and what they were saying, all of a sudden, like flip of a switch, it wasn't resonating anymore. It wasn't moving. What happened? And a lot of marketing and advertising is studying why people do what they do. What makes them tick? How do I get you, persuade you via language to take action on something, right?
I took copywriting courses too. Loved that. And they would boil it down to fear and passion. are the two things that would resonate with people. Besides like those two things, what else would they mention as far as they would get people to react or call to action or
in the book?
Yeah.
Just again, you're challenging here, me.
I know. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
Because I want to plagiarize it and use it in my own business. This is why I'm asking.
Well, read the book. It's actually a really good study, and there's been presentations done on it. You can find them on YouTube. The guy he did a TED talk on it. His name is Michael Drew, and
that's why I brought pen and paper.
Yep.
For these
look it up
right here.
And he breaks it down far better than I can. I've just been a real big champion of the concept, but it prompted them to look into the Generations books. And then because of that, they saw it not as 20-year increments, but they saw it more like a pendulum. So we go from one extreme to the other. And that book takes it back 3,000 years.
Interesting.
Like before the time of Christ.
All right.
And the crucifixion of Christ actually happens on the zenith of a we. It's mind-blowing. So all the things that they picked up. It's a real cerebral read. It's probably a better listen. Because they do a good job of it.
That's how I consume most of my books anyway.
Yeah.
So
I would totally strongly suggest it.
All right.
Anything else, man? Where do people find and follow you and all that fun stuff?
Well,
you almost need a podcast. You're like made for one.
I've thought about it a while just because I know a lot of interesting people, not so much my story, but theirs. I got to feel like they need to get out there.
You started grilling me just now. You're asking me questions, man. I love it.
I think I'm naturally just, I'm trying to find answers to, apply and be better each day. But
you're like thinking like an attorney. You know, specifically tell me what. I don't know.
Where were you on the night of? I've owned ChristopherMcClintock.com for probably 25 years now. But that goes right to my gym. You can see that. I'm on the Instaface, just Christopher McClintock.
Right.
You can see that. My one account was hacked about almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, so I've been having to rebuild all that. And I'm not hard to find. I'm in about 3 places, either Comfort Keepers, my gym, or at home.
Right.
So
there you go, man. Well, thanks for coming out. I appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me, brother.
And for Comfort Keepers, if they need to they want to get a hold of you that way, it's comfortkeepers.com.
Comfortkeepers.com. That's right. If you want to, and actually mid10, midten.comfortkeepers.com.
Okay.
We'll take you right to, all of our websites.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, brother. I appreciate you.
There you go. Of course, all the information and details will be in the description, so check that out if you want to reach out to Chris. He's a worthwhile hang and conversationalist. You've heard it here, so if you have any questions for him, reach out to him. All those details will be there. And of course, if you want to, encourage this podcast to a friend, or maybe you want to come on, the link is there at the website, MMTBP.com. That is the acronym for Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast. Would that be an acronym? Doesn't really say anything. I'm not sure.
I think there's something there.
Yeah.
My brain is.
Yeah.
We'll come up with something.
Either way, MMTBP.com. All those things are right there. Christopher.
Jim.
Great time.
The Angry Young Man. McCarthy. And if you haven't seen it, I'm looking at the camera now.
Yeah, it's right there.
I'm looking at the camera right now. You have to go to Jim's social and see him play the drums. The Angry Young Man.
Oh, yeah.
He is. If you've ever seen a round peg in a hole or somebody in the state of flow, that's this guy right here.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought maybe you just had a spy camera on whenever I have technological challenges and I go off.
No, I've been deep diving on the McCarthy train here.
Cool, man.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And thanks. What a great conversation, buddy.
Appreciate you.
We'll have to do it again.
Thank you.